All right, good afternoon. This is Chris Doberton, AEP 867. This is our final assignment. Doing a revision on the lesson from assignment 4. So under revisions and rationale, first off, I just wanted to remind folks about my lesson. So I am not a teacher. I'm not in a traditional classroom of any kind. So in the U.S. Air Force, my job as a fuel superintendent is to make sure my people are trained and equipped to do their job. In my section, I run a section called the Fuels Lab. The laboratory is responsible for the safety of the fuel to make sure that it is clean, dry, which means it meets all requirements and specifications. It doesn't have water in it, a lot of different things that the lab does. So for this particular lesson, the things I'm discussing is about training newly appointed lab people. So that's the main focus on this lesson. I only put the best of the best in the lab. So when I get new folks in there, I want to make sure they're fully trained and they understand their job and how important it is. So for this particular lesson, it was training on fuel system icing inhibitor sampling, which is just really one of the many samples that my lab technicians do on jet fuel. And it's to make sure that the right levels of the chemicals are in there in the fuel to keep water from freezing at altitude. It's in every jet fuel if you've flown on a commercial jet, and it gets tested by labs all over the world. So while you're flying in that jet, you know that you're safe. So revisions and rationale. After going back through the lesson, which we did try out on a couple of the new trainees, one of the complaints, really, the feedback we got was the reading material. Our reading material is more of a technical order, which is a lot of just mumbo jumbo. It's hundreds of pages long, and we essentially assign them this to read. So what we've done is go back and look at creating just a simple checklist in order to give them a little bit, I guess it would be less intimidating kind of reading to do. So they would just have the checklist portion of the sample that they're going to create in that one lesson. That way they don't have to have this entire book. And then the other thing was to give them more practice time before the final sample. So practice is free for us. They're just running samples over and over again on the same fuel. And it doesn't cost anything but time. So allowing them to have the time to practice a little bit more instead of rushing through the lessons was something that we took away. So how did the task yield appropriate evidence and identified understanding? So first, the assignment was they had to watch a YouTube video and they needed to do the reading in the TO. So the first day when they came back, we discussed, as you would in any classroom, what they learned, what kind of questions they had, and just ask them questions. Ask them questions about their reading just to gauge their understanding. And for the most part, they really understood well the concept of the lab themselves, why they were doing them, the importance, etc. And then we were able to have the students help us setting up for the demonstration, which again pointed out evidence that how we set up the lesson with the videos and them actually seeing it for themselves, they were able to remember some of that and they would help us out. And then again, the discussion of reading. So during practice, we made them practice during the labs so they could take time, they could mess up. And they were, for the most part, doing really well without any of our assistance. So again, they're following a checklist. They have all the equipment out. Should be relatively easy to follow the lesson, but some people do struggle with it. The task involved a complex, real-world, authentic application. Well, yes, this lesson is a qualification for their appointed job. So that's the life lesson here. They're getting taught laboratory skills that are critical for the flight of the aircraft and the crew safety of the aircraft. So they're definitely applying the skills directly to a job that they're going to be doing. How are a variety of appropriate assessment formats used to provide additional evidence of learning? I'll go back to what I said before. So just different questioning techniques that I like to use to make sure that, even have them ask me questions as if they were trying to train me. The demonstrations, them being able to walk me through what I was supposed to be doing, and then the practice. So formative practice, allowing them to get that in as many times as they need to for mastery of the actual lab sample. I can't have them messing up during the actual lab sample, so they have to have mastered the skill. So as much practice as they need. And again, they have a checklist. So during the summative, there's no errors that were allowed. which means they had to perform the test to 100% accuracy based off of the TO checklist. So it's something that these trainees, they are my students, have to do. So for them actually self-assessing while they do it, again, the sampling procedures, they can figure out whether or not they're understanding what they're learning when they're going through the practice. If they get to a point where they're just completely stuck, of course I help them, but if they're able to walk through that, then they're pretty sure they've self-assessed right there. And then they have the video, so they can always go back and watch for understanding in the YouTube video that was created for the training class. So that's it. That's a pretty cool jet right there flying off, and that's what we do. We make sure that the fuel in those jets is safe for flight, and that's done by making sure my lab troops are trained properly. I appreciate you watching the video, and good luck with all the rest of your classes.